Hey everybody, welcome to Maine Wedding Buzz. Today we're going to be talking with more photographers about what they're doing out there and all the new things that you can expect at your wedding. David Bates is with us today. Thank you, David, for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm David Bates, and I'm a photographer and owner and operator of a gallery and studio in Saco.
Now, when you say gallery and studio for our audience, what does that entail?
My gallery has a lot of my fine art photography work over the years. I've done a lot of travel. I do a lot of different types of photography. Weddings is one of the things I do a lot of.
Oh, wonderful.
So the gallery is a place that I can exhibit
Showcase.
my work. Sure, yeah, and it's been a great addition to my studio to have a place to really display.
Now, is it open to the general public? Is it open like 9 to 5?
It is open about 9 to 6 most days. Saturday mornings, a lot of the times it's open too, over at the farmers market at the Saco Island Mill. Just really been enjoying having that kind of a location to exhibit my work. I've never had a place to sort of showcase my
Your talent.
just my work, and really it's about trying to show my audience the places that I've been. I love to share that kind of stuff. So it also gives me a place to exhibit some of my wedding type work as well.
And how did you get started in the business of, well, I always say this wonderful world of weddings that we do, collectively, all of us. How did you get started in that part of it?
I got started, I think it was probably a couple years after actually opening my business. I think I did a wedding for a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of a gift to do it. And of course, I had never really done a wedding at that point, a full wedding, so to speak. And I did it, and I ended up really enjoying it. And I thought it was so much fun. And I loved how the images came out. I thought that they came out and they really told the story. I think it was about telling a story of a whole day. It was so much.
That's a nice way to describe it.
Yeah, it was really thrilling to me to be able to tell it that way. And so I had so much fun. I was like, I think I should try to maybe offer this as some of my services, because I think when you're doing work, you want to do something that you really enjoy. Mm-hmm. And then it's not a job anymore. So then I started offering that as a service, and I remember the first time that I had a client that actually wasn't a friend or somebody that was connected. I was a bit nervous, as I think anybody who starts a new business venture or a part of their business would be. But I think it worked out good, and I was happy.
And how many weddings do you do a year, generally?
I probably now do about probably 10 to 12. Mm-hmm. I don't, back some years ago, I think I was probably doing closer to 20 to 22, 24. But nowadays, I'm doing a little less weddings than I used to. But I find that the weddings that I'm doing these days are, because maybe that I'm doing less, I'm really having a chance to really find the individuality a lot more, and I really like that.
And you spend more time. So
Yeah.
You're going to assume you're longer hours with that particular client
Absolutely.
from start to finish. Now, talking about that, do you spend I know when we set up, we start at 7:30 in the morning and we go till the end of the party. Is that something, how does that work for you? Do you start early and then shoot, the makeup session, them getting dressed, then the guys, the grandparents? How does that work?
Right, exactly. Well, first, I mean, the preparation starts, getting ready by meeting and having consultations and really sitting down several days ahead of the wedding to sort of get to know my clients and to get to know their personalities and what they might feel comfortable with and what they may not feel comfortable with. And it gives us a chance to sort of establish sort of a good relationship. That's the first step. And then on the wedding day, I offer levels of service that would be, say for example, a package where they can choose to have me start at, say, 3-4 hours before the ceremony begins, and that would entail a lot of that work, the hair, makeup, getting ready, the pre-ceremony type work, both for the bride and the bridesmaids, as well as the groom and the groomsmen. And then that oftentimes will go to the end of the reception.
Now, do you stay to the end? Because I've noticed a new trend that's happening, which I think is interesting. They stay all the way to cutting the cake, and then they're out the door. but they miss the dance part of it. And I, I don't know about you, but I think I would want to see some of those action shots that you forget, that how people dance on the dance floor, some people who get crazy at the end. Do you stay for that part of it, or is that something that's offered in the package as well? I mean, because I don't know what's going on in this new trend that people just leave right after the cake and not stay to the end.
Yeah.
Because you're missing a good 2.5 hours of some good film.
Absolutely. No, I've always, I think that's been one of the things, and I'm not sure if it's necessarily separated me from my competition, but I've always believed that I owe it to my clients to stay to the end. If they want me to stay to the end,
Capture all.
I definitely stay to the end, and I do not, and even when they've given me the 100% choice, I will recommend that we don't just leave after the cake cutting, because as we all know at receptions, things don't get interesting until a little bit later.
Exactly. So
you got
a couple drinks in you.
Exactly. So those are sometimes become some of the more memorable images from receptions, is because it has a chance to really display the celebration, I think, in a real sort of let your hair down kind of way. And it kind of shows how much fun everybody had. And if you don't have those fun pictures to recount, then you don't really have a true, I think, you haven't really captured the true essence of what the party was all about. So I think it's important to stay to the end.
Now, what do you think about the trend, too, that's happening with the first look? Do you like that? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do like that. I think it's interesting in the 20 years I'm in the field, finding the new trends that are sort of come and gone. I think that it is a very interesting the first look is a very interesting facet today that people are wanting to introduce into their pictures. I find it exciting. I find it a lot of fun. It's emotional.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest part of it, is that I find myself really liking the emotion that the day is all about. I think that that's one of the things I think probably that draws me into doing weddings, is I really love to see, like, for example,
it's sort of raw. Everybody's
very
natural,
raw.
and everybody's letting everything out, and you can see it all unfold.
Absolutely.
So I like that. And for first looks, anybody who doesn't know what first look, it's when you see each other beforehand, so you can take care of all the family photos ahead of time and not be so timed. Time is like a burglar sometimes at weddings. It goes by so fast that you want to experience everything. And the reality is, you have 5 hours of a wedding. You don't want that to be gobbled up with just photos. Not that it's not important, but keep in mind, you got 5 hours, and so you want everything to be captured. Having a first look beforehand really gets rid of all of the family photos, grandparent photos, sibling photos, both sides of the family. Everything's done, and you're really just going into getting married, then coming into the reception part of it and enjoying the day.
Yeah.
And for some people it works, for some it doesn't, but just keep that in mind, like when we talk about things. Tell us a little bit about your travel, because I know you do travel, and I just want to say this one thing quick. David had given me these 2 wonderful photos of elephants. One is very up close. They were hanging in our tasting room. And another one is, I think you shot it inside of a Jeep, if I remember correctly. And the other one was sort of charging, and that you tinted them blue. And they hang in my cafe where we do our tastings. And people always talk about that. And so that was in Africa. So tell us a little bit about those kind of experiences that you're having out there as a photographer.
Yeah, thanks. I just have always found that travel is the greatest investment a human can make in their legacy, or just in their life. I think that memories are so important. There's so many things in this world that we all know about that depreciate. One thing that doesn't, to me, is travel. So I've always found that's been important, and we've taken our son to see 22 national parks out west. And we've always been a very active, outdoorsy sort of family. We've done a lot of mountain climbing. And in 2009, to sort of sum up, and sort of just to do a real big, lifelong sort of trip, or a trip that's going to be remembered forever, we decided to go to Tanzania, and we decided to climb Kilimanjaro, which is the highest freestanding mountain in the world. It's not the highest mountain, but it is a very major mountain.
Pretty high.
Yeah, about 19,000 and 19,003 something. Pretty big mountain. And it takes about a week to climb, the way that we did the hike. And we had such a great time, and we captured a lot of great memories, met a lot of great people along the way, and also after the climb, which was about a week to 10 days worth of our time, we then embarked on a safari. So we went to the Serengeti in the Ngorongoro conservation area and literally witnessed wildlife the way it is in you know, not in a zoo. It was so beautiful. It was moving. The people we met some of the local peoples, and really, I would say it's the greatest experience of my life.
And then you just captured that with your film. And is that stuff that's hanging in your gallery as well? Like,
Yes,
do
I
you
have.
use your personal experiences in your gallery as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, I do. So I have a collection that I'm starting and always expanding upon called my Africa collection. So it's really select images from that trip that I feel really describe and sort of sum up the power that trip had on me. And I think people love to come in and see that kind of work because it's so different than what people from Maine are used to seeing, from the people to the landscape to the animals especially. So yeah.
Wow. And what trends are you seeing that are new in this in the photography world that you can say, you know, this is something I'm going to bring that I saw over here, and I'm going to try and you know, bring it, whether it's into your gallery work or wedding or corporate. And I know you do also studios prints. I don't know if they're called studio prints, but where you take high school seniors and do prom photos and things of that nature as well.
Yeah, I do. You know, I do a variety of photography work outside of weddings and travel. And one of the things that keeps me quite busy, of course, in the summer months is your high school senior portraits. And for example, you know, seniors they're at a very huge time in their life. They are discovering who they are. They are gaining lots of self-confidence, but they also have a little vulnerability still left in them. And so I love the feeling that I can create images for them that gives them a lot of self-confidence.
And I've noticed that because when I was a kid and I graduated, you know, you just took a picture and they came, you sat behind,
it was so
I think
simple.
it was a red screen behind you, and you sat with your hands folded, you took a photo, and boom, it was done.
Yeah.
I mean, these photos are like incredible. I mean, their hair is blowing in the wind.
Absolutely.
And I give it a lot of credit because some of them are just really phenomenal. I mean, you look and you just go, wow. They've come a long way. I said, I don't think they would have settled for what we got when we were kids.
That's true. I mean, they want so much individuality.
Yes.
And they want that to be shown. They want to have something that they're going to feel like, you know, this is different. Yeah. This is unique. And that's really what they all are.
I spent 4 years with all these people. I want them to see another side of me. I think that's what comes out of, you know, being from away and seeing that. I'm like, wow, I really love the way this is being done here. Yeah. So, you know, I wish that it would have happened back when we were kids. It was part of it. But, you know, like everything, new trends are going to be happening when they're older. So.
Right. And I think in weddings, for example, I think the thing that I probably find most like a trend or a style that people are looking for, and it's been going on for quite some time now, but people like images that are not looking too staged or set up. Yep. And so there are ways that I tend to, when I'm at a wedding, I don't want to be noticed as much as possible.
Do you do it almost like a photojournalistic style?
I try to do that as much as possible. I mean, certainly there are things at a wedding where it is somewhat important to have a beautiful, beautiful family portrait, that have your grandparents involved and have the multiple generations, because in 60 years, 70 years, you don't just want to have a random shot of something like that you can see only half of somebody's face. I mean, certain things have to be, you know,
you want to see everything.
Yes, but when it comes to like trying to capture moments like it, that's why I like the reception, for example, is that is a great opportunity to catch people being themselves. 100% relaxed, they're in full party mode, and you get some fantastic candids of people, you know, that way.
Do you do photo booths? Do you bring any of that?
I offer the service.
You do? Okay, so I just wanted to know about that because, you know, we do a lot of staging too, so we'll bring in some antique furniture so people can pose around it, and that seems to be really happening more and more in these trends where you're bringing in staged areas where people can come do photos, and sometimes there are some really interesting photos come out of it. So I don't know if you do that as well.
Yeah, I don't bring in the furniture or full sets. Yep. But I do bring in something that is that is a wireless sort of trigger system that people can use
Wow.
to take fun group portraits, and that's another thing that just adds to the fun of the reception, because again, when people are relaxed and have had a couple of drinks, it's really funny, some of the group pictures you get.
Oh, I know. I see it a lot. And I know for us, January, February, March, and April, and I've said this before, we tend to book for next year. How, does that work the same thing for yours? I asked different photographers that have been on, and everybody always has a different answer, and I just always want to know how it is in our industry. Do you see yourself booking for 2016, or are you still working on 2015? How does that work for you?
Yeah, great question. Sometimes I have booked, something from 18 to 24 months in advance. I think typically it's usually between 8 and 12 months.
Wow.
But usually around a year, in advance, people will contact me and reserve their event. We do book. I do book up kind of quickly.
Awesome.
In such a busy season. So between that and I also shoot a lot of collegiate sports.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that is another thing that takes a decent amount of my time. And weekends sometimes too as well, although not so much in the summer.
Now, at the studio, do you do a lot of the portrait sessions there? So if I'm doing an engagement session, can I
Yes.
do it there?
You can, but I think that the most popular thing to do, for example, recently, I have a wedding coming up in October of this year, and I met the bride and groom on a very cold day at Daring Oaks.
Okay.
And it was in December, I believe, and they wanted to do some of the low light using the tree lights that are installed throughout locations in Portland, like Longfellow Park, places like that. So we went and waded through the deep snow on a really cold wind chill day, during sort of the sunset dusk hours, and got some fantastic shots for engagement session. So the engagement session to me is such a huge advantage to have,
Because you get a feel for them, I think. I don't know. We do that at the tasting, so I'm assuming that you would feel the same thing during that engagement session, that you get a feel of what their personalities are like, how they interact with each other, what they like and then don't like in photos. So that is a good advantage for you. I never thought of it. That's actually
it
really
just
cool.
helps so much with the comfort level coming into the wedding day. They've already had a chance to work with me. They kind of know the way I'm going to work. I kind of know the way that they like to be photographed, if you will. And it just makes for such a smooth experience, and just and not to mention, you just get some beautiful engagement photos to sort of share your announcements with.
Wow. Yeah. And do you do any trade shows? Any like bridal shows, anything like that? I mean,
I used to do a lot more bridal shows. Lately, over the past couple years or so, I've been ramping that down. I've been spending a lot of time developing my gallery. So with the amount of wall space that I have in there, I'm finding that that's a constant process. I'm selling work.
Yeah.
I'm also utilizing Etsy for some additional exposure for that type of work. And I'm finding that I'm diving a lot of time into the gallery.
Wow.
I'm also doing some online sort of wedding search engine type things, or blog type programs that work well
for your industry. Good,
Yeah.
that's good. What's the now, I always ask this question because it's always interesting to me, especially with photo booths. What's the craziest thing that you've shot in the studio, or that you've seen that you just go in keeping it G-rated, I guess?
The craziest thing, let's see. There's a lot to choose from.
Just give us one crazy one without any names to protect the innocent.
I would say at a wedding, I'm trying to keep this in a wedding sort of
Live.
Yeah, I would say there's been some interesting ones where, unfortunately, brides and grooms have had a little too much to drink at one wedding, and I saw them getting very ill, and it was not a good day for them.
That's where you move the camera aside.
Yeah, I sort of did. Yeah.
So the moral of the story is, do not drink too much on your wedding day.
Drink responsibly. Yes.
Exactly. And now, how long do you spend, and I know we covered this a little bit, how long do you spend at the location? But I'm going to move that question to how long from start to finish does somebody get their finished product? So I've met with you, I've done my engagement session, you've now photographed the wedding, now the process is over. when do I get my album? You know, I'm sure that that's the first thing girls are like, oh, you just finished. When do I get my album?
Right.
You know,
exactly.
so
Yeah. So the services include. You have an option between an hourly coverage rate. I offer that as an option because some weddings are smaller scale and they don't want to dive into a giant package.
Yep.
But giant packages, they include finished albums and all that. So they have an option. So if they're doing a package though, which is a great system to use, the wedding's been photographed. So I would then they would start seeing images come into their complimentary online gallery that's password protected. So it's very secure.
Okay.
They can share it with their family and friends, and that's a way to start seeing the preview images fairly soon. Like I would say
are those
within 3 days.
touched up images or not touched up?
They are edited.
Okay,
And
okay.
Specific facial retouching and things like that are not done on the previews.
Okay.
But any finished album image that would be chosen. So from those previews, we would choose a number of images to be in the album, and the ones that go in the album do get touched up so that everything is just perfect and beautiful.
Wow.
The albums are made in Italy, and the turnaround time, I would say once a bride has placed her order for an album, it's about 2 weeks in-house.
And how long do you keep photos? Some people say they store them for like 5 years. You know, there's a house fire and I need my photo album redone and it's 6 years later. Can I
Yes.
contact you? Is that something that's stored? I mean, now with technology, I think you could store forever, but
You
that's
can.
a lot of data.
You can, and it is a lot of data. So I started photographing weddings in the 90s. So back then it was film, medium format cameras, very high quality. So I still have my weddings stored in an
negatives?
off-site location.
Oh, wow.
Still in negative form from those days. And then when I went digital, of course, now we're talking the ability to really condense. So those files are still stored. So I've got weddings dating back, I think at this point, about 15 years probably.
Wow.
So I do try to save that stuff because it's so important. It's also important for people, not just for the peace of mind, but also if somebody passes away. I've had many situations where that's been the case and they need to have pictures.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not the kind of call you want to receive.
But at least you
becomes
have it.
so
It's like
important.
security almost.
Yeah.
You know, if you've moved and you've had your stuff moved from say Maine to California, and in transport something got lost, I can call you. It's a security feeling where
It really
I don't have to
is.
feel like I have to have duplicates of everything.
Right, and then today's weddings, if you get a package or if you go to the hourly coverage, you receive your images on disk. So it's just another way
Oh wow.
that the client has I have my images in my hand, and they feel so great about that. And they're also backed up with a redundant system at the studio as well.
Now, I know you recently moved from one era to the other, and how long have you been in the new gallery space?
I've been in the new gallery space since October of 2013. So
Wow.
we're coming up on a year and a half, 2 years.
And you have the waterfall, which you can see all the
Fabulous.
time. So
Yeah, I
that's
love
a great, here in the water, it's sort of calming and tranquil.
Yeah,
I
it
think.
is.
And it's a really upcoming little area too. So there's
It
going to be
is.
a lot of stuff happening there. So I'm glad for you. I know your space
Thank
well.
you. Yeah.
And how long are you? And I don't know this. And how long have you been in Maine, or were you born in Maine?
I was born in Maine. I've lived in Maine all my life, but I have actually been around in the state. I've lived in I think it's something like 11 towns.
Wow.
Yeah. So
What made you settle in Saco?
I like York County. I like the proximity to being both between Portland and Boston. I think that it's just a great location. It's got great outdoor activities. You're within reach of the White Mountains.
I think
New
the
Hampshire.
same way too, because keeping our business in Saco, we were able to move from Belfast to Portsmouth with no trouble.
Absolutely.
So I think that
It's a great location. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're here.
Thank
Do
you.
you work with other photographers the day of, like I think they call them second shooters, first shooters? I don't know that terminology that well, but do you have somebody else that's capturing from, you're in the back, front? How does that work? Do you do that?
Yes, I do. On a larger scale wedding, and if it's a longer coverage situation and a larger wedding party.
Like say 29, which I've had 29 in the bridal party.
I have too before. I've had one I think mine was 26, yeah, and it was incredible.
Wow.
But second shooters are very handy.
Okay.
For multiple angle type looks during a ceremony, for example, you get more coverage that way. During a introduction sequence at a reception, there's so many advantages to having a second shooter, and I do bring them in for a larger scale wedding, or if the client wants to add that on. They can add it on to any package. It's a service you can add on.
Awesome. And do you? I'm big on vendor referrals. Do you do the same thing? Do you, which I think we're on yours, you're on ours. Do you do that with other people? So when you find a venue, you hook up with them, and that's sort of how you're sort of stretching the arm of the web so that people get to know where you're at.
So important.
Yeah.
So important to work with
social
people
media.
that you trust. Yeah, either through social media or through your own websites. I mean, that's just a good starting point. Is to work with somebody that you trust, and you've been able to do it a few times so that they know how you're going to work,
Yep.
and you know how they're going to work.
Comfort level.
Yeah,
almost.
absolutely. And then you have no problems referring them. And I think that in Maine's like a big small town.
Yeah.
It really is.
I agree.
And I think, I really think that if there's people that you work with that you trust, and they trust you,
The event goes better. It
really
really does.
does.
It's
It's all about
once
that.
you walk into a room and you see everybody that you know, and you just go, okay, I'm covered. I don't have to worry about
Right.
this. They know how I work. I know how they work. So
Yeah.
we're all on the same page. And do you do social media, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook? What are the new things that are out there? Your website, obviously, and things like that. Does that seem to drive your business? I mean, do you do a lot of those things?
yeah, I do. I try to stay up with it, as we all know. Anybody who's ever been in business,
24-hour job. That
it really
social
is.
Media.
It really is. I really do try to keep up with my Facebook business page on Facebook. My business pages. I have the gallery pages. I have the actual Fotografix studio pages. And then of course I do a little with Twitter. I still don't understand 100% how Twitter works. I do my best.
It seems a little crazy. We were just having this conversation. I don't think I want everybody to know what I'm doing every second of the day. Hi, I just got out of the restroom. Hey, I
yeah,
just did
it gets
the,
a little
you know,
too much.
Too
yeah.
much information.
But it's certainly a good platform because it's such a popular thing right now. I do some Pinterest. It seems like every day I get notifications, of course, that people have added me or following me, and that's great. It's a good way because it's such an image-intensive website.
It is, and for us, we look at Pinterest a little bit different. We do have a Pinterest board. I don't actively do it because a lot of girls come to me with their Pinterest book. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to showcase them mine because they already have theirs with like 20,000 photos that I have to go through and find their personality
Yep.
out of those photos, and you can do it. So I sort of leave the Pinterest to, here and there once in a while, but
Sure.
Facebook are for us one of the major social media things that we do. What's the coolest place you've taken a picture?
Well, if it's one of my favorite locations to work at for weddings is Migas Lodge
Oh, wow.
up in Casco.
Yeah.
And I love it up there. I love the people. The staff do a fabulous job. The location is pristine, right on the lake.
Nice.
It's a great outdoor location for a ceremony. Then they have that vintage boat that they take the wedding party out on, and that's just a lot of fun.
Wow.
To go for a cruise on the lake. That's a fabulous place to do a wedding. But there's many others. I do a lot of work with Joseph's by the Sea in Old Orchard Beach. It's a very private sort of small
Location.
venue, but it's beautiful, right on the water. That's a nice spot. Of course, the Colony is another favorite place to work. I love places like that. But Maine's just full of fabulous locations.
Oh, Maine is beautiful. I
Chebeague
think.
Island Inn. I love Chebeague.
I did a wedding on Chebeague, and barging everything out is a hassle unless I think is it Caitlin, the apprentice that owned the Chebeague?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think it's them. So it's an interesting location. We did a wedding at a private house there, and barging everything out sometimes is like, oh.
It is a lot of work, and probably a lot more so for somebody like you than
if
for me.
it's just in one location. But Maine, to me, I think for being a photographer, I just look at it and I just go, my God, the scenery is constantly changing for you, from the foliage to winters to summer to spring.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always beautiful. I
It
mean,
really is.
Being from away, I'm looking at Maine as, wow, there's an experience every time you turn around. So
Yeah, it's
just-
always different, and that's what I love a lot about Maine and New England, and especially if you're outdoorsy, it is the place.
Yeah.
It is the place to be.
Well, I appreciate. As always, thank you for tuning in. Next week, we're going to have some more guests on. I think we're doing flowers next week, so tune in next Monday. Again, thank you for joining us on Maine Wedding Buzz. Thank you, David.
Thank you. I appreciate it.